So it seems like everyone's in this season of intentional singularity.
Such
At
a good
least,
term. Such a good
yeah,
term.
and so many people are in this space right now.
Yeah.
And I know the last time we talked and we were talking about your story around intentional singularity, we talked about this idea of honoring yourself in the process and setting
hmm
boundaries.
hmm
Go a little deeper into like what that means for you.
I think one of the first things I did with honoring myself was making the decision to be intentionally single, you know?
It's a good
Um,
first step.
so it's a very good first step. It's a hell of a step, for somebody who's a reformed, like, I'm going to date you because it'll make me feel better. Having somebody is going to make me feel good about myself. And so to make that deliberate of a step, to make that weighted, I guess, of a step for me was huge. But at the same time, it wasn't. It was just like, something's got to change. Something's got to give. So this is how I'm going to honor myself. I love myself to make the decision to no longer put up with things that I do not deserve. I love myself enough to not even put my place in spaces where people would have the opportunity to dishonor me. You know, um, I love myself enough. I love and respect myself enough to recognize that I need to do some work on myself. You know, and that I can't and shouldn't ever again rely on some type of relationship or situationship to feed me the things that I should very easily be able to feed myself with. You know, um, so that was a conscious decision. Um, and it was just like when there was one day I just kind of sat back and played back all the relationships I had in like the last 2 year spans, I'll say, relationships and situationships that I had. And it was just like situationships. It's kind of like an entanglement, but not.
Okay. I like it.
Shout out to Will and Jada. No, that's harsh. Chris, by the way, watch Chris Rock special. Um, the last 10 minutes especially. But I just needed to do something different. And I started looking back at the last couple of years of relationships or situationships that I was in, and they just weren't good. And it was like, there was like that hollow feeling of, oh, this is something. But I found myself settling. I found myself putting things that I wanted for myself on the back burner in the spirit of, I was telling myself, making a relationship work. But retrospectively, I was trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, because I was discrediting and discounting myself and just putting myself in a corner. Like, I'm not important enough to make, to voice. I'm not important enough. I don't love myself enough to express what I really want or what I'm really looking for out of this relationship. And I was very, I would say quick, but that's not the right word. I was very okay with saying okay and just going with the flow.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I really, now I'm in a space of like, my first and foremost honor to myself is being intentionally single. Not allowing people or not allowing men in my space where my gut tells me it's not a good reason for this person to be in my space. There's no redeeming quality, for lack of a better way of putting it, for this person to be in my space. He's not going to enhance my life. He's not going to complement my life, as my mother says.
Mhm.
Um, we're not of the same mindset. We're not of the same spirit. We're not of the same core values, because that's super important. You know,
Really important.
there can be some similarities in your core values, but they just can't be like, I'm on the left side and you're all the way on the right side. That
Yeah.
that and then think, oh, we're going to meet in the middle. No, your core values that's who you are. That makes up you.
Well, and I would say, ladies, if you're in any stage of life where you feel like you don't have time for any of the bullshit and you don't want to entertain these like low level, surface level relationships,
Situation.
have these conversations early.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I'm not a spring chicken. Um, but I also don't have one foot on the grave and the other in the banana peel, as my mom says. Um, but if if and when I choose to be intentional about being in a relationship, there are going to be some very weighted questions that I'm going to ask from the very beginning. Because it's like if you can't answer them, that's a problem. If there's some type of um pushback on answering them, that's a problem.
That's a problem.
That's a problem. And you probably should go Dutch on that coffee date. You should you don't need to pay for anything for me because even to that point, don't go on the first date expecting the dude to pay. Pay for yourself. Because then you're not obligated to that person for anything. This is just a meal, this is just a coffee, this is just a drink for two people to get to know each other and see, do I want to see you again? You know, after I've seen you this first time. I remember my friend Nicole, she would always say that about her now husband, that she kind of went into it with no expectations, hopeful, but no expectations. But she was just like, I would always ask myself after every single date, I like him. It was a cool moment. It was a cool experience. Do I like him enough? Did I have enough fun on the experience to want to see him again? And the answer was yes. And that's how she went through dating her now husband, you know? And I remember when she first told me that, I'm like, man, that's a novel idea, you
Yeah.
know? Um,
Well,
I
there's
was,
a difference, I think, between like when you're in a mode of like you're looking for substance
mhm.
versus like I'm lonely and maybe you just are looking to have some fun.
Maybe you have an itch that needs to be scratched.
That's different.
That's
So
totally
I'd
different.
say if you're the person looking for substance, which it sounds like Korey is,
At
like,
some point in
don't
time,
waste my time.
please don't waste my time because I don't want to waste yours. You know,
Know what you're looking for.
there's got to be that mutual respect and that mutual reciprocity of understanding what you're doing from the jump, you know? Um,
Not saying you need a marriage proposal in the
yeah,
first date, but
I'm not trying to like, get a save the date card or pick out China patterns. Do they even do that anymore? I mean, do they? Because I mean, I don't know. But I'm not trying to go to Target with a scanning gun and try to, pick out our bridal registry or anything like that. But just don't um let's not waste each other's time, and let's go into it not wanting to waste each other's time, having respect for one another, being reciprocal with one another in terms of communication, but also let's also go into it with a mutual agreement that there are zero expectations.
yeah.
Like my friend Nicole and her now husband Alex, do I like him enough to want to see him again? Do I like him enough to want to keep getting to know him? you know
Mhm.
um
And continually asking yourself that so you know,
yeah,
like, do I keep doing this or
or
am I out now?
yeah, yeah, yeah. She and I have talked about relationships so much in the past, like, before when she was dating, and I attest to it too. You would go on one date with a guy like, oh my God, this is my person, this is my knight in shining armor, this is my missing piece. I think because I think that we've gotten so caught up in the superficiality of what social media, what television, what movies paint relationships and marriage to be.
Yep.
So it's like, oh, this is it. Oh, it happened just like it did in Made in Manhattan, or it happened just like it did in Romeo, well, not Romeo and Juliet, that's a really really bad example, but like it happened just like it did on the movies, it happened just like it did on Real Housewives of Potomac or Atlanta. No, let's be real, guys. you
Doesn't usually
know
happen like that.
it really rarely happens like that, and if it does, I'm excited for you, but I let's just be realistic about this. Let's be realistic about our wants. Let's be realistic about our expectations. Have expectations, please. Don't
Definitely.
make assumptions. So yeah,
Don't settle for less.
yeah, don't is that Ross? Is that the store Ross's motto? Don't Ross? No, it's dress for less. My bad.
Dress for less.
But it was just, my first act of honoring myself was making the decision to be intentionally single for a stretch of time, for an as yet determined amount of time. Um, my second was probably creating those boundaries, drawing some lines in the sand as to this is what I will tolerate, or this is what I will do, this is what I will not do, you know, and not even with respects to other people, but more so with respects to me in terms of as a means of getting to know me.
Yep.
We are a constant evolution, um, and you have to have a really, really good idea about who you continually evolve to be in order to ultimately find that person you're supposed to be with. I wholeheartedly believe that there's somebody out there for everybody, but it doesn't happen at age 25 for everybody. It doesn't happen at age 26. It doesn't happen at age 40. It happens when it's supposed to happen.
Well, yeah, and let's talk about this idea that there's somebody. Like so many women in particular, we romanticize love to a degree where it's like
Mm-hmm.
there's this one soulmate I was put on this planet to be with. And I'm like, that? I mean,
Mm,
how many people are there in the world?
there's billions.
And you're saying there's one person on this planet that you were destined to be with? I mean, I don't know. Maybe
No,
that's romantic to some people that you think like I'm going to meet my soul's mate in another. I don't believe that we have one soulmate.
I don't really believe that we have one soulmate because I think that, and this is probably going to be super controversial about what I'm going to say or super triggering, because I think, I don't know how to put it. I thought, okay, let me put it this way. I thought that my soulmate was my high school sweetheart, Jerry.
Don't we all think that then though?
Oh my God, we were going to be married. He was going to be an
Yep.
architect. We were going to live in Buckhead in the ATL.
You plan your whole life when you're like 18 years old.
Yeah, I was going to be the next Oprah. Kenny G's, one of Kenny G's. I'm super dating myself as to how old I actually am. There's a Kenny G song that was going to be the theme song to my daytime talk show. I legit was going to be the
My.
next Oprah. We were going to live in a ranch style house with a half circular driveway. We were going to have like 2.5 kids. I mean, I literally can see the whole kitchen that in my head I had already planned out to be. That was that young, innocent, first puppy love type thing. Um, and I held on to that for a long, 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 long time, well into my third.
Guilty.
Well, and honestly, I'm gonna be honest, well into off and on for the better part of 20 to 25-ish years.
Do you think we overly romanticize our first loves?
I do. Just simply because I think you do. But you don't realize you do it
No.
until you're out of it, until
You're
you've
like,
got some other relationships under your belt.
yeah.
Uh,
And then I was like, what the fuck? That
what
was
the
never gonna work.
world? Why would really?
What
And
what about that person made me think that that was gonna be my forever person?
yeah, and honestly, no disrespect to Jerry. Jerry's a good guy. We haven't spoken in some years, but he's a good guy. It's just that, I think we both kind of held on to, well, this is what it was like when we were young and 17. And okay, dude, you're like, you're in your mid 40s and I'm about 9 to 12 months behind you. And we've seen some things, him more than me being in the military, and that in and of itself can change a person. Um, and me just experiencing the things that I experienced when we were in spaces where we weren't talking to one another for whatever reason, you know. Um, but yeah, I was convinced that I'm gonna marry him and we're gonna have this amazing life together and we're gonna raise little beautiful black children and just have a great time and we're gonna live in Atlanta and we're gonna be hashtag relationship goals, hashtag black excellence and all that stuff. And it just didn't it just didn't
Didn't play out that way?
it just didn't roll out that way. And um yeah, I have a whole lot of thoughts on that. Well, like I said, we have not spoken for quite some time. Last time we spoke, it was not a pleasant conversation. And
Okay. So let's get back to this idea of soulmates. You said
yeah,
you're gonna say something really controversial, so I'm like waiting for the controversy because I might agree with this.
I think we have different souls at different points in time in our life, you know? And before I got off on my ADHD tangent, um, I honestly thought that Jerry was my soulmate from about the age of 17 to maybe about late 30s, early to mid 40s, off and on throughout that period of time. The person that triggered the intentional singularity season that I'm in right now, for a stretch of time I thought he was my soulmate,
Hmm.
you know. Um, and I and for whatever reason I thought it. I no longer think it, obviously, you know. There was a person I was in a 4+ or 5 year relationship with. I thought on some levels he was my soulmate. And he candidly was not. But what I will thank him for is he was also very realistic about marriage because he had been married before.
Oh,
And he would say, marriage is hard, you know, marriage is
100%
hard.
can attest to that.
Yeah. And I think that at the time when he and I were dating and we were in a relationship for an extended period of time, I was still in that romanticizing phase of, oh, like we live together and it was like, oh, you know what? He comes home from work, I come home from work, we make dinner, and this is it. This is all marriage is. And he was constantly reminding me, marriage is hard, marriage is hard. And even to the point that one day he said, if you find that person that wants to do that again, because I don't think it's me,
Mm.
that if you find that person, you should go be with them. And when you first hear that as a person that's still young and very romantical about relationships and marriage, you're like, oh my God, you just shot an arrow through my heart. But realistically, he's a very, very pragmatic and very realistic person. And and I respect him for that. Um, but there were a lot of things in some ways I thought that for a stretch of time he was my soulmate, but no,
But no,
you know.
I mean,
Um,
I feel like I have, like, sticking to your point about how your soul changes over time
mhm,
kind of thing.
mhm,
I've had multiple soulmates.
mhm.
I still have some, and they're not always romantic relationships.
Yeah,
They're usually
yeah,
not.
yeah,
I mean, I
yeah,
have friends that I would consider soulmates,
yeah, yeah.
people that have been in my life, and they may not last forever. Like, there was a time, like, to a degree, I'm like, our souls connected when we met. Are we soulmates? Maybe for this season in life, who knows how long that will last?
Exactly.
We don't know.
Mhm.
Your soul just recognizes something in someone else for your
Like
life.
recognizes like. Energy recognizes energy. Energy matches energy.
Like, this clicks.
Your vibe, let's keep the cliche train going. Your vibe attracts your tribe. Um, I would say that, of all the men I have dated, I would consider them each soulmates to some degree still. Like, if they were in some type of a crisis or if they needed something and I had the ability to help with that, I would do it in a heartbeat. Because even whether or not, with the exception of a couple relationships, just because you caused me physical harm, you
Mm.
know. Um, but you know, I just feel that if there's something I can do to help them at some point in time, I would do that because that's just who I am. And they were in my life for a reason or a season. And in that space, they've taught me something and that's a chapter in my life that is forever, you know? Um, so I don't know if any of my ex-boyfriends are listening. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, we're so quick to discount the past or be like,
yeah, yeah, of most, if not, if of most of my exes, if I saw them somewhere, it's all love. It's a hug. It's a, hey, how are you doing?
oh, it should be.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that you're doing well. I'm proud of you. Are you happy? That type of stuff. Some of them, no, there's no
Yeah.
acknowledgement of their mere existence. But that's because you've caused me some level of harm.
Yeah. Well, and that's just a complete deal breaker.
Yeah, yeah, you caused me.
You don't get to be in my life.
Yeah,
I don't think about you.
yeah, you literally no longer exist. My friends always say that I am very, very good at blocking people out of my life. And I literally, like, you no longer exist. And some of my friends think that it's very harsh. My cousin, oh, she's like, I just don't get why you do that. Because it's more self-preservation.
Yeah.
Because I just know myself that, I always try to see the good in everybody. And it's really easy sometimes for me to get really caught up um, in like a good conversation. I'm like, oh my God, it's going to be different. It's going to be this. No, you've caused me harm. You've caused me pain, literal pain. My dad
It's not
always had
okay.
this. Yeah, my dad always had this saying. My dad always worked on a three strikes you're out rule, and I work. And I never used to understand it when I was in my younger years. And the older um, I get it, and I apply a lot of it to my life in a lot of aspects. First strike, the first strike, that's an honest to God mistake. You know, depending on the situation. Like if you're a man and you raise your hand to me and you strike me, that's a first, second, and third. You're completely out in that moment. But the first time you do something, it's a mistake. It was a faux pas. It's like, oh my bad. You make amends with it. You move on from it, but you never let it leave your memory. You always keep it in the back of your head with respects to that person or that situation. Second strike, it's a habit. That's a habit. You are comfortable being in that space, whatever that space may be, of negativity, toxicity, or just ugh, you know. You may forgive. You're definitely not going to forget because now you've racked up two of those same instances with the same person. The third strike, that's literally who you are as a person. That's how you're made up. That's how you move. Move away from me. I do not want that energy. I do not want that type of shit around me. And when I started doing that, and to me, that equates in blocking people, literally from my phone. You no longer have a right to have access to me. And I don't feel like, what'd you say?
Masterclass in boundaries.
Yeah, I do not feel like we need to have some long, drawn out conversation about it. We're all grown, we're adults. You know how you move, you know how I move, you know what I tolerate, you know what I do not tolerate. You did what you did. And if you actually have to ask me why, well, if you can get in contact with me, because I no longer exist.
Yeah.
But if
we have to call it. We have to call it sometimes, and we don't.
You have to. You have to be the one. I think sometimes I went into stuff blindly thinking, oh well, they'll understand me. They'll get it. It's fine. No. Sometimes people are just inherently dumb. Or they
spell it out.
Yeah, you have to spell it out. Whether you got to get a skywriter, you got to put a sign like a billboard. You have to spell it out. But then at the same time, it's like, why am I doing this? This is a grown ass person, and you move so comfortably in that space of toxicity or negativity that this cannot be the first, second, third, fifth, 12th, 11th, 12th, 25th time you've done it. So sit down and take some time and put all the puzzle pieces together. And I can guarantee you the puzzle is going to be a picture of a finger pointing at you. This is what you do,
And just to be clear, this doesn't sound like the kinds of things like some listeners may be thinking, like, God damn it, you keep leaving your shoes in the same place.
Yeah, like this is not a you didn't close the kitchen cabinet, you didn't put the toilet seat down. This is none of
annoyances.
Yeah, it's not things that irritate me. It's not things that annoy me. These are things that bring disrespect to me and or our relationship.
So be clear on that distinction.
Things
that annoy us that people do.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, I really wish you wouldn't do that.
Like, could you put the toilet seat down?
Yeah. Could you please turn off the light when you leave the room?
Like the little things in the closet.
Yeah. Those are our hangups. That's how I always look at those things. Like we all have our own hangups, and they're very little to do with the people we're in relationship with. We just have.
That's just you. That's just
have things. And sometimes we have to get really tolerant about that.
You got to compromise.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, clearly this isn't your thing. I've said it a million times. And for some people, you know what? That is a deal breaker.
So for some it is.
That's personal.
Mm-hmm. But
I think you're talking about are like much bigger infractions, like character. I don't want to say character flaws, but sort of.
Just
when you're not in alignment with someone, you're like,
yeah. I mean, I could give examples, but I just don't want to put people's stuff out there. Just out of respect for previous relationships I've been in. But yeah, not just things that you probably inherently know she's not going to go for that.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of that comes down to the values piece you brought up early.
Yeah.
Like when you start to see where your values are completely out of alignment, or you're like, whoa.
It's like, who are you? Yeah.
How did I not know this about you? And I mean, I had plenty of those moments.
Yeah.
Lots of relationships where I was like, and we ignore them a lot of the time, right? Or we go, oh.
It's like, well, he made a mistake.
Yeah. Or if we give him an out, like, he was having a really hard day.
It's like, what? I get it. It's been a tough stretch, but, and that's a strike one.
Yeah.
And it's not like I hold up a card, like a yellow card or a red card in soccer, like, okay, this is your yellow card. This is your warning. No, it's just kind of like.
That would be kind of fun, though.
It would be kind of fun just to
whip that yellow card out.
Blow it out and then like blow.
I don't even need to say anything.
Yeah, just.
You just hold it up.
Just like, just like maybe put some yellow and red, like, color blocks on your phone and your photos, and just every once in a while they do something like, hey, I'm holding.
Yeah, maybe we need a code of conduct in our relationships.
And isn't that, isn't that sad? And it just dawned on me, people are going to act in ways that, and I said this to some of my mentor kiddos yesterday, One of my kiddos asked, is it okay for me to hug my mom? And I'm like, but I had to stop myself because in my head, I'm like, yeah, duh. But
Is it?
I had to remember that, you are going to know what you experience and you only experience, how did I put it? Like this one, what the kiddo told me was that, well, my mom doesn't like to be hugged, but I really want to hug my mom. Like she tries to push me away when I do that. And it's like, well, I said, I don't think that really has anything to do with you. Your mom only knows what she experiences, and she only experiences what maybe her parents knew,
Oh,
And I said, so
heartbreaking.
it's different. Yeah, it's very heartbreaking. It's very different. It's because in my family we are a very, I'm not going to say we're a super overly affectionate family, but there's hugs, there's high fives, there's fist bumps, there's kisses on the cheek. There's all of that. We're a very tight knit, or a fairly tight knit, loving family. There's always hugs. At the very minimum, there are always hugs.
Yep.
And it's just like, to me, I'm like, well, everybody hugs in their family. They don't.
I know.
Um, and so to my point with relationships, you can only do what you know, and you only know what you've experienced, you know? So are there subtle ways to, I don't want to say teach, because I think that just kind of sets up a situation for maybe not the word intimidation, but it just sets up like I don't want to say teachable moment, because that's so coachy to say, but there's ways that you can introduce new things. Or I remember I told a guy that I dated, he did something I can't remember. I'm like, I don't know what type of woman you have dated before me, because I'm not her. This is not acceptable with me.
Oh, the baggage we all have.
Yeah, and then to my point, the gentleman I was in a 4 or 5 plus year relationship with, he always would make this comment: we all have baggage. The older we get, we're always going to have baggage. But what is most important about the baggage? Is any of your baggage going to affect the here and now with you? And it's like, no. Okay, well, we've acknowledged the baggage. Do you want to talk about the baggage? Okay, well, okay. you
Well,
know
and I think I was talking about baggage with my mom recently because she's realizing that now that she's like in her 60s and trying to date is like,
Mhm.
oh gosh, this like the
There's
baggage just
It's everywhere.
loads up. And I was like, you know what? We need to start looking at it a different way. There's
Yeah.
a difference. Some people have baggage. And to
Hmm.
me, baggage is like shit,
Yeah.
trauma, stuff that's unresolved.
Yeah.
Stuff that's gonna get messy if you start getting inside it. Like you start getting inside that bag, you're like, fuck,
It's like
I
this.
don't want to be in this.
I need to get out of this bag. Yeah.
Because we are all carrying our past
Hmm.
at some level.
Absolutely.
But there's also I was like, you want to be with someone who has luggage.
Yeah. That.
Luggage is like the story I carry, like my past, but
Mhm.
it's not messy. It's mostly resolved, but like, yeah, it's
It's
there.
still there.
But it's not gonna pop into this relationship and like
Wreck
sabotage
havoc on
it
it. Yeah.
or
Yeah. It's
yeah,
not gonna it's
there's a
not gonna
difference.
compromise things.
It it's not as heavy.
It's not heavy. It's just there. It's just
Yeah,
sitting there. It's in a
exactly.
closet, sitting there.
So I'm like, I'm not asking you not to have luggage.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
necessarily want your baggage.
Yeah. I'm not really sure I'm gonna get down in that baggage with you, but you can have luggage. You can have a carry-on or two.
That's what makes people interesting. I was like, what's your story? We're stories people. I'm like,
because because all of those stories are shaping who you are in the here and now. Like, okay, well, tell me what's going on, like, tell me about you do have to, I think, have those conversations. Well, tell me about what your previous relationships have been like,
yeah,
and I think in that conversation, for at least a blip of it, you can figure out, okay, do you have luggage or do you have baggage,
exactly.
you
Right.
know and then I'm going to tell you, and then you're going to have to decide, do I have luggage or do I have baggage, you know
Well, and let's talk about what some really obvious tells might be, because we've probably both experienced them. Like when you know someone has baggage that you could potentially avoid, given you don't want to be in that headspace or you don't want to be in that kind of relationship.
You got ex-girlfriend showing up at your house.
Ooh. Or you're with someone who's still married, but they're
That,
getting divorced.
yeah,
That would be me right now. That's why I say you don't really want to touch me because I have baggage at the moment.
I have baggage. I have literal
Yeah.
baggage. Yeah.
Like I literally still am married to someone.
Um, not being forthcoming about your relationship status with respects to like, um, I was seeing somebody and we went out to dinner and we were coming back to his place and this girl met him in his driveway. I'm like, who is that? I don't understand why she's here. You don't? And then mean mugging me. And
Oh,
like, I'm just like,
uh,
um, what was that? That was literally my question. What was that? You know? Um,
mm, yeah, that's not a good one. Or
yeah.
the other one I think about that sometimes people really overlook,
Hmm.
which can be kind of obvious,
Hmm.
is like addiction type stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
There's
why
signs.
yeah, and I'm like, I always tell women, like, if you really want to up the ante on your dating, especially in the beginning, and this is what I would tell myself too, is go on dates that don't involve alcohol.
Yeah. See how they are. See how they react to a date where there is no alcohol.
Well, and just so you don't have any, like, you can really just be you,
Hmm.
hopefully,
Hmm.
and they can be them,
Hmm.
and you can really see if it works because let's be honest, everyone is a little different when they're drinking.
Hmm. And I'm not really sure, like, I don't think that I'm not a big drinker. I've gotten to the space now. It's not that I was a really, really big drinker to begin with, but we go out. If I go out to dinner on a date, maybe I'll have a glass of wine, maybe I'll have a dirty Shirley, but it's not like it's one. That's it. Most of the time I'm gonna drink iced tea or water. Um, you know, there is a little bit of truth to like, the alcohol will take the edge off the nervousness of a date, but then if you keep slamming them back, that's a problem. That's a
Yeah,
little
like,
that's a little bit of a problem. Um, and I'm not saying a person needs to be super forthcoming. Like if they've had struggles with addiction, okay, everybody's had their struggles for something in some way, shape, or form over the course of time. Um, there are signs. There are little signs. You're right. Go on a coffee date first. Go on a walk.
yeah, walk is great.
Walk is great. Um,
Walk and talk, it gets the blood flowing, and I feel like your brain just works in a different way when you're
it
moving.
does. It
So
does.
it
Yeah.
makes for a really good conversation space.
Yeah.
Um, the other thing I was thinking about also was this idea of can you sense things like are they a workaholic? Is that a deal breaker for you? Do they talk about work a lot? Is that the only thing they know how to talk about?
I don't know how to answer that because I'm a workaholic. Um,
Well, it depends. I'm like, it all goes down to your value system too, right? Like, what is
yeah.
important to you? What are you looking for? Are you looking for someone that's going to make you that queen in your world?
She's your queen.
If they're married to their job, what are the chances that's going to happen?
Your job is your queen.
Yeah, yeah, your mistress. But like,
Yeah,
you got to be realistic.
I don't, and actually I take that back. I'm not as much of a workaholic as I used to be. I do remember I used to be that woman that was the only thing I would talk about or think about. But I would also probably say I was probably that woman that was the only thing I would talk about or think about because I didn't want to acknowledge feelings or being vulnerable.
Yep.
So I hid behind work a lot. Um, hmm.
I'm like,
Would I
there's,
don't, I would want to date somebody that has a pretty healthy work-life balance,
yeah.
you know? Um,
I feel like most people do, and it's a hard one to really see actualized in your life.
it
Or you
is.
think you're going to get it, and then you're like, oh, this person's really just all about work.
Yeah, I think as being a self-employed person, it's a little bit different. It looks a little bit different because, we don't have that safety net of a guaranteed paycheck all the time,
Yep.
so that we do approach things a little bit differently. Um, but work-life balance. You cannot be married to your job. Like we cannot be on a date and all of a sudden you're about to leave because you can't be on a client call when this is, I don't, that's a hard one to navigate, but no, you can't be a workaholic. That's probably the best answer to say.
Yeah, and like looking at what their priorities are early too is always something I've looked at
Yeah.
in recent years. It's like, okay, where are you spending your time? Do you honor your commitments?
hmm if you have children, are your children ahead of me? Because that's where they should be. Um,
There is a caveat there, though, I have to say.
what's that?
What if they're grown children
Well, yeah, okay, yeah, caveat. I mean, if they're like 25, come on.
and you're trying to be a daddy like they're still 12?
Yeah, like, okay, then clearly I'm not the person for you. But like,
Because you can be married to your kids.
you can be. You can be married to your siblings.
Mhm.
Um,
Like they take up all the space.
yeah,
I'll give
that's
you what's left over.
yeah, that sounded very sister wives in what I just said. But I mean, um, you know, like I remember dating a guy years and years and years ago, and they had a son, and the son always took a back seat to me. And I'm like, I don't think I can continue seeing you. And the son was like 3,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I can't see you. Why not? We have a good thing going. Sure, but we should have a good thing going after you take care of your child. So
He's number
um,
one.
that should be your number one. And if I'm having to tell you that, that's problematic, you know? Um,
What about how people talk about other people?
if you talk to other people in a disrespectful or negative, toxic way, if you talk to me about other people in a negative, toxic, demeaning, disrespectful way, I pretty much know how you're going to talk about me when and if this fails. So I'm good.
Too good. You're like, I'll pass.
Hard pass.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I keep going back to like, there's all these tells, and a lot of it is being really clear on what our own values are.
mhm.
So we know when that line is crossed for us.
It's a very easy decision to make.
Yes, because I mean, I've been in situations where either how they spoke about different types of people,
Mhm,
politics, where
mhm.
you just start to go like your spidey senses start to
The
light up,
hairs on the
where you're like,
back of your neck start to stand up. You get goosebumps. Like, who are you?
and if that happens early, you can guarantee there's more coming.
Yeah, that's if they felt that comfortable to say whatever it was after just knowing you about a month or so, God help you for 6 months down the road, you know?
Or someone
Yeah,
who thinks they can touch you in a certain way early.
I don't know you. Mm-mm. Yeah.
It's like there's lots of things I think as women, like we just need to be armed with that knowledge of ourselves and like what we're willing to tolerate and what is important to us.
If you have to lie to your friends and family about who he is, if you have to elaborate or enhance his story,
Mhm.
it's a little that's a little
I
off.
I legit dated a guy on and off for 5 years that I would have to hide from my friends and family when we were on because no one liked him.
I've had to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, like I will get so much shit if they know that I'm dating this guy again.
We can't go. No, we can't do this. No, we
And
can't go out.
we have to hide.
Yeah.
And I think to him, like he thought it was almost funny or like fun,
Yeah.
or thought like you're exaggerating how bad this actually is. Like
No, I'm not.
everyone's fine with me and be like,
They're not.
actually they hate you, but
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. If that's what you think you need to keep telling yourself, I mean, that's fine. But they
How to
actually,
know how to know when you're dating a narcissist.
yeah. Yeah. You know? But yeah, I found myself sometimes having to enhance what they do, so they sounded better on paper than what they actually were. Um, and it gets tiresome,
Yeah.
you know? And I think what it boils down to is just it was for the sake of having somebody, and it just doesn't work for me anymore. It just doesn't, you
No.
know?
So this is a great way, I think, to kind of start to wrap things up and talk about intentional singularity as a choice, right? That honors you versus when it may be appropriate for you to be in relationship.
Um, I'm a firm believer. I'm a firm believer in God. Like I believe in God. I also believe in the woo woo. So I say God/spirit. Um, I believe that what is meant for me when it is meant for me will never pass me by, whether that be a job opportunity, a coaching opportunity, speaking opportunity, mentoring the kiddos opportunity, or dating opportunity. But in that season, that in the meantime season, you focus on yourself. And if that means that you are in a space of, well, let me back up. I am in an intentional season of being single. I have done what I needed to do to shut that opportunity off for a while because there are just things that I want to accomplish on my own with very, very little, with minimal distractions
Yep.
In this year. And then I kind of want to get used to that, you know, what that feels like when I do accomplish all of those things, get into a rhythm, get into a routine. But also because I am a firm believer of what is meant for me will never pass me by. Um, if I'm supposed to no longer be intentionally single, if I'm supposed to be taken out of this intentional season of being single, then that will reveal itself to me. And the person that is revealed will be a person that completely understands, dude, she's doing her thing. And she's worth it to spend time with her when she can, and she's worth it to understand what she's doing, and I support her. I'm gonna root for her. And for whatever amount of time I can be in her space when I'm able to be in it, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
You know? And that's not saying that man does not exist. It's just that right now that's not where my focus is, you know? Um, yeah, I made a very, very, my cousin and I, or my cousin, hi Jen Jen. We both made very, very intentional decisions this year, coming into this year, about the things we wanted to accomplish. Um, you know, and that's just what we're doing. You know, I think you and I have made decisions in terms of being very intentional about things that we want to do, with respects to, you know, projects and ventures that we have on the horizon. And it's like, I know how I'm like in a relationship, um, when I'm also trying to do things, you know, work wise, professionally speaking, whatever. And I can't let that side of things go left. So that's not to say that there isn't a person out there that will understand that and empathize with that,
Yep.
but I'm just not going to look for him. You know, I'm not gonna put a flashing billboard above my house being like, I'm being intentionally single, but if you understand what I'm doing, you know, ring the doorbell. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
Um,
Not taking applications.
not taking applications at this time, you know, because what is meant for me will never pass me by when it's supposed to be in my life. Um,
Hear that, women, because we've probably often been told many times in our life that when we stop looking for the thing is when the thing happens.
mhm.
It's usually true.
Yeah, I just didn't. And I found that, you know, I have really mixed feelings on dating apps. I feel it's low key prostitution. Um,
I can see that.
I just kind of do. It's like you're intentionally looking for your person. And I think that when you intentionally look, your your radar is a little skewed. I don't know any other way to say it. I'm sure that I probably pissed off a whole lot of dating sites and a whole lot of people that are on dating sites. It's not for me. I find that, like you said, when you are actively looking for something, you don't find what it is you actually deserve. I'll leave it at that. You know, at least, and again, I'll rephrase that again. It's I can only speak from my own experiences. Um, so, you know, don't give it so much energy. Sometimes the best gifts are presented, or the best things come when you're not looking for it, you know, when it just pops up. So,
Yeah, I mean, and I'll leave you with one of my favorite quotes that I remind myself often, and those in my life that I feel like are in relationships where they're not being appreciated or valued
mhm.
is we accept the love we think we deserve.
Yeah, 100%. You know, one of my boyfriends in college would always say, you got to be selfish in relationships. You always have to love yourself first before anybody else can even come close to loving you, you know, and even when the person does love you, um, you still have to love yourself more, you know. And I fall victim to forgetting that. I fell victim to forgetting that a lot in my dating life. So whatever energy about a surrounding love in yourself that you put out there, that's going to be what you get.
Mm.
You know?
Amen to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think we'll leave it at that.
absolutely. I think we should.
Love yourself first, and you'll attract so much more than you would otherwise.
Yeah. You'll attract what you literally deserve when you're supposed to attract it.
Exactly. See you all next time.
Bye, guys.